African Kings of the Maya. There were many kings of the Maya Indians who were Africans. One of the major researchers who has studied this phenomena is Marc Washington of Philadelphia, an independent researcher. What we're going to do in this video is discuss some of those African kings of the Maya. The Mayan worshipped many black gods, and these black gods, in a sense, were very popular. But many people believe that the first Africans in Mexico were the Olmecs. But this is not true. Many of the pre-classic Mexicans were blacks, not Native American. Here we see the Shama vase. On the Shama vase, we can see a Maya greeting one of the African gods. One of the earliest examples of these blacks in Mexico comes from the Temple of Warriors at Chichen Itza. This mural of the warriors is very interesting because it shows uh, African and Native American Maya beating some of the earliest whites who tried to invade the Yucatan Peninsula. We find that many of these whites were taken by the blacks and they were sacrificed. Other whites were captured and upon their capture forced to return back to Europe. So as we can see that the interactions between African Maya and Europeans goes back a long way. But let's get back to the fact that we really have to understand this phenomena of ancient blacks among the Maya. Given the discovery of numerous Olmec artifacts depicting blacks, begs a number of questions. Were they black or African people in ancient America? Do the African heads of the Olmec confirm an African presence in Mexico, or do they show present day Mayan people? What is the relationship between contemporary blacks in Costa Chicas, or Negro Costa Chicanos, and blacks depicted in Olmec artifacts? The idea of mestizaje was developed by Jose Vasconcelos. Mr. Vasconcelos became Minister of Education in 1921. During his tenure, black heroes of Mexican history were whitened as Vasconcelos pursued a policy of homogenization of the Mexicans. In 1946, black Mexicans were rediscovered by Aguirre Beltran when he found the blacks in Costa Chica. This was a rediscovery because the idea of mestizaje stressed the idea that there were only Mexicans and not Amerindians, whites, or blacks in Mexico. The only problem with this idea was that the black Mexicans became associated with poverty and ignorance. These blacks also experienced much discrimination throughout Mexico and much hostility even in Costa Chica. The Negro Costa Chicanos claim that they have never been slaves and are indigenous to Guerrero and Oaxaca on the Pacific coast of Mexico. The 1990 Mexican census recorded 66,000 Negro Costa Chicanos. These Mexicans live in African style huts and practice rituals which may be of African origin. Most researchers believe that the Negro Costa Chicanos are descendants of maroons or runaway slaves. But none of the blacks of Costa Chica have songs about slavery and its hardships. The Negro Costa Chicanos say they are not, they insist, the descendants of African slaves. There was never slavery here, even in ancient times. Bobby Vaughn, who discovered these Negro Costa Chicanos, found that there is no consciousness of slavery among the people in Costa Chica. Another researcher noted that housewives in San Jose, Estancia Grande, and Santiago Tapichatla in Costa Chica say their ancestors did not come from Africa, that their families have always lived right here. The fact that the Negro Costa Chicanos claim that they were never slaves has troubled some researchers who believe that the only blacks in Mexico came to the New World with the Spanish. Although this is the popular view concerning the origin of blacks in Mexico, this view may be Eurocentric because the archaeological and historical evidence indicates that blacks were already in Mexico when the Spanish made their way to Mexico. In Belize around 2100 BC, we see evidence of agriculture. The iconography of this period depicts Africoids, and at Izapa in 1358 BC, astronomer and priests invented the first American calendar. In addition, numerous sculptures of blacks dating to the second millennium BC have been found at La Venta, Chiapas, and Tlatelolco. The earliest culture founded by blacks in the Pacific Coast region was the Mocaya tradition. The Mocaya tradition was situated on the Pacific coast of Mexico and Soconusco region. Sedentary village life began as early as 2000 BC. By 1700 to 1500 BC, we see many African communities in the Mazatlan region. This is called the Barra phase or Ocos complex. During the Barra phase, these blacks built villages and made beautiful ceramic vessels. often with 3 legs. They also made a large number of effigy vegetables. The figurines of the Old Coast are the most significant evidence for blacks living in the area during this period. The female figurine from Aquiles, Sudan is clearly that of an African woman. The blacks of the Mocayo tradition were not Olmec. The civilization of the Mocayo traditions began 700 years before the Olmec arrived in Mexico. Most researchers have assumed that the pyramids were built by the Maya. Although this is a popular view, many of the pyramids in Mesoamerica, found in Guatemala and Belize, we find stucco model jaguar pyramids. These pyramids with jaguar masks and large earrings predate all the Mayan pyramids, and these pyramids indicate that they were probably built by Africans who worshiped the jaguar cult. We find many Mayan kings. For example, at San Bartolo, Guatemala, mules are very beautiful. They were discovered by William Serturno of the University of New Hampshire. These mules were found in an unexcavated pyramid. We see a picture of one of the kings of the San Bartolo, Guatemalan site, and he was King Kale. You see? Here he is sitting on his throne. There's a very interesting figure also from San Bartolo. We see a boat, and there are a number of figures. Moving from right to left, we see 4 standing figures nearest the end of the boat. These figures are carrying bundles raised above their heads. In front of these figures, we see several symbols. These symbols provide context to the procession. There are a number of female figures on the boat. The woman near the corn guard has writing symbols on their faces. The kneeling figure holding the vase on the far left side toward the end has the word Gyo Ti, which means righteous cult specialist, on her cheek. The standing female figure in front of the last 3 symbols, placed in front of the person carrying gifts, has the word Te, she is righteous, written on her cheek. We find, in a sense, that there was another black chieftain at Kaminal Huyu. Mike provides an interesting monument from this site. And this site was recorded by one of the other street scholars, and this street scholar, better known as Mike, has provided a wondrous supply of material on blacks in ancient times. He's also made a number of videos that I hope many of you will try to find, because they will enlighten you about the history of blacks around the world. There are many more black African kings in Mayan villages. These independent kings were first recorded by Marc Washington. Marc Washington, an independent researcher from Philadelphia, has done extensive research in this area. And what we're going to do now is look at some of these black kings, these African kings that Marc has found and brought to our attention.